The 1960s were a time of revolution, change, and music that pushed every boundary imaginable. Radio stations across America wielded enormous power back then, and they weren't afraid to use it. A song could climb the charts one week and disappear the next, pulled from airwaves for being too controversial, too suggestive, or too threatening to the status quo. Some of these bands seem almost laughable now, while others tell us exactly what America was afraid of during that turbulent decade. These are 15 famous songs from the 1960s that were banned in America. Number 15. I Can't Get No Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. This 1965 hit revolutionized rock music, but many stations wouldn't touch it. The lyrics criticized commercialism and mentioned a girl during her period. This direct reference to menstruation was considered absolutely inappropriate for radio play in 1965. Dozens of stations banned it outright. Others played edited versions that removed the offending verse. The song's sexual frustration theme also made program directors uncomfortable. Mick Jagger's delivery, dripping with attitude and rebellion, didn't help matters. Conservative stations saw the song as everything wrong with the British invasion, corrupting American youth with explicit content and anti-establishment attitudes. Despite these bans, the song became a massive hit, reaching number 1 and becoming one of the most iconic rock songs ever recorded. The controversy actually fueled its popularity. Young listeners, told they shouldn't hear it, made extra efforts to find stations that would play it. The bands created a forbidden fruit appeal that the Stones would exploit throughout their career. Number 14. Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed.
Take a walk on the wild side. Oh, honey.
Though technically released in late 1972, this song was written and developed throughout the late 1960s, during Reed's time observing the New York underground scene. Several stations that did play it in early 1973 quickly pulled it once program directors actually listened to the lyrics. The song featured characters from Andy Warhol's factory scene, including transgender individuals and male hustlers.
Take a walk on the wild side.
The references to giving head, which somehow slipped past initial radio censors, eventually got noticed. Once stations realized what they'd been playing, many yanked it immediately. The ban was particularly strong in conservative markets, though the song had already gained enough momentum that it became a hit despite the restrictions. Reed's deadpan delivery had actually worked in the song's favor initially, making the explicit content less obvious on first listen. But once the lyrics became clear, the backlash was swift.
Honey, take a walk on the wild side, and the colored girls go.
Number 13. Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan. Dylan's groundbreaking 1965 epic faced resistance from radio stations for multiple reasons. At over 6 minutes long, it violated the standard format for radio play. Stations were built around 3-minute songs, and programming a 6-minute track disrupted the carefully timed format. Beyond length, the lyrics were seen as bitter and mean-spirited. Dylan's accusatory tone toward an unnamed woman who had fallen from privilege made some programmers uncomfortable. The song felt angry and harsh, lacking the romantic or uplifting qualities stations preferred. Some stations played edited versions, cutting the song in half and destroying its impact. Others refused to play it at all, citing both its length and its negative tone. Columbia Records actually released the song on a 45 with Part 1 on one side and Part 2 on the other, trying to accommodate radio format restrictions. Dylan's sneering vocal delivery and the song's aggressive musical backing didn't help its case with conservative programmers. Despite these obstacles, the song broke through, reaching number 2 on the charts and becoming one of the most influential recordings in rock history. The bans and restrictions couldn't stop it. but they demonstrated how rigid radio formatting was and how uncomfortable stations were with music that challenged listeners rather than simply entertaining them. Number 12. Louie Louie by the Kingsmen. The 1963 recording became one of the most controversial songs of the entire decade. The Kingsmen's version had muddy, barely intelligible vocals. Teenagers across America became convinced the slurred lyrics contained obscene content. The rumors spread rapidly. Students passed around supposed transcripts of what the singer was really saying, filled with graphic content. The FBI actually investigated the song, conducting a 2-year inquiry. Radio stations across the country banned it, terrified of the potential backlash from playing obscene material. The governor of Indiana banned it statewide. The reality was far less scandalous. The lyrics were innocent, just difficult to understand due to poor recording quality and the singer's delivery. But the investigation and bans gave the song legendary status. The more it was banned, the more kids wanted to hear it. The FBI eventually concluded the lyrics were unintelligible at any speed, making it impossible to determine if they were obscene. This non-conclusion didn't stop the bans, which continued in various markets throughout the decade. Number 11. Light My Fire by The Doors. The Doors' breakout hit from 1967 faced censorship for one specific line. Jim Morrison sang about trying to set the night on fire, but another line suggested getting much higher. Ed Sullivan personally demanded The Doors change that line when they appeared on his show in September 1967. The band agreed. Then Morrison sang the original lyric anyway during the live broadcast. The incident became legendary, and the band was banned from ever appearing on the show again. Many radio stations, following Sullivan's lead, began editing the song or refusing to play it entirely. The drug reference was obvious, and during the height of the counterculture movement, stations were under pressure to avoid promoting drug use. Some stations played edited versions with the controversial word removed, creating an awkward gap in the song. Others simply programmed different Doors songs. The ban actually helped cement the band's rebel status, making them even more appealing to their target audience. The battle over those few words became symbolic of the larger cultural war being waged through popular music. Number 10. God Only Knows by The Beach Boys. God only knows what I'd be without you. The Beach Boys released this beautiful ballad in 1966 as part of their groundbreaking Pet Sounds album. The song, written primarily by Brian Wilson and Tony Asher, became one of the most acclaimed compositions in popular music history. But several radio stations, particularly in the South and Midwest, refused to play it. The problem wasn't the melody or the arrangement, it was the title itself. So what good would living do me? Using the word God in a pop song was considered blasphemous by program directors at numerous stations. They believed popular music had no business invoking the deity, regardless of context or intention. The irony was profound. This deeply romantic song about devotion and love was deemed offensive simply for including God in its title. God only knows what I'd be without you. Many stations that banned it played plenty of songs with far more questionable content, but those songs didn't have God in the title. The ban was inconsistent across the country, with some regions playing it freely while others refused. This patchwork approach to censorship was typical of the era, where each station made its own decisions about what was appropriate. Number 9. Eve of Destruction by Barry Maguire. Tell me over and over and over. Released in 1965, this protest song pulled no punches. in criticizing American society, politics, and the Vietnam War. Dozens of stations banned it immediately. The song mentioned bodies floating in the Jordan, violence in Selma, the hypocrisy of the space race while people starved, and the military draft. Program directors received pressure from sponsors, local politicians, and community groups to stop playing it. Some stations that initially played the song pulled it after receiving threatening phone calls.
I don't believe we're on the eve of...
The song's anti-war message during the escalation in Vietnam made it politically radioactive. Several competing pro-America songs were quickly recorded and promoted as alternatives, including The Spokesman's Dawn of Correction.
We're on the eve of destruction.
Despite the bans, Eve of Destruction became a #1 hit, demonstrating the power of the counterculture movement. The generational divide was clear. Older listeners and establishment figures wanted it off the air. Younger listeners made it a phenomenon. The battle over this song played out in living rooms and around dinner tables across America, with parents and children on opposite sides.
Tell me over and over and over.
Number 8. The Ballad of the Green Berets.
Courage take from the Green Beret.
This seems like an odd inclusion, but hear the story. Released in 1966, this patriotic song celebrating Special Forces soldiers became a massive hit. It was generally welcomed on mainstream radio. However, several progressive and college radio stations refused to play it. These stations saw the song as pro-war propaganda during a time when opposition to Vietnam was growing on campuses.
But only 3 win the Green Beret.
Some underground stations actively mocked it, while others had policies against playing anything that could be interpreted as supporting the war. The ban from these stations was never as widespread or as impactful as the bans imposed by mainstream stations on protest songs. But it demonstrated that censorship existed on both sides of the political divide.
Leaving her, just last request.
Anti-war activists saw Sadler's song as dangerous glorification of military action. The selective nature of what got played became a marker of a station's political leanings. You could tell a station's attitude toward the war based on whether they played Sadler or Barry Maguire.
Have him win the Green Beret.
Number 7. Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon by Neil Diamond.
You'll be a woman soon.
Neil Diamond's 1967 hit faced bans from stations that believed the song promoted inappropriate relationships between adults and minors. The title alone triggered concerns. The lyrics, which addressed a young girl on the cusp of womanhood, were interpreted as an older man expressing romantic or sexual interest in someone too young.
When I finally found what I've been looking for, but if they get the chance, they'll end it for sure.
Program directors, increasingly sensitive to any content that could be seen as inappropriate regarding minors, pulled the song from rotation in numerous markets. Diamond maintained the song was simply about the passage of time and growing up, not about any inappropriate relationship. But the perception was enough to create problems.
You'll be a woman soon.
Stations didn't want to face accusations of promoting improper conduct. The ban was never universal, and the song still became a hit. However, certain markets, particularly in areas with strong religious influence, kept it off the air throughout the decade. The controversy followed the song for years, with later cover versions also facing similar scrutiny.
You'll need a man.
Number 6. Puff the Magic Dragon by Peter, Paul, and Mary. This 1963 folk song about a dragon and a boy named Jackie Paper became embroiled in controversy despite its seemingly innocent lyrics. Rumors spread that the song was actually about marijuana use. Puff was supposedly a reference to smoking, and Jackie Paper supposedly referred to rolling papers. The dragon living by the sea in a land called Honolulu was supposedly code for drug culture references.
In the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu.
These rumors persisted, despite repeated denials from the group and the songwriters. Several stations, concerned about the allegations, banned it. Program directors didn't want to take chances on playing something that might be promoting drug use, even if the evidence was purely circumstantial. The creators maintained it was simply a children's song about imagination and the loss of childhood innocence. But once the rumors took hold, they were impossible to shake. Some stations played it only during children's programming hours, but not during regular rotation. Others edited their playlists to avoid any songs with drug-related rumors, real or imagined. The ban based on rumor rather than actual content became increasingly common as the decade progressed and drug use became a major social concern.
And puff that mighty dragon, he ceased.
Number 5. Ode to Billy Joe by Bobby Gentry.
Today, Billy Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie.
This haunting 1967 ballad tells the story of Billy Joe McAllister jumping off the Tallahatchie Bridge. The song's mystery and dark subject matter made some stations uncomfortable. But the real controversy came from speculation about why Billy Joe jumped. Some interpreted the song as dealing with pregnancy and abortion. Others heard implications about homosexuality.
Billy Joe's jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
The intentionally ambiguous lyrics allowed listeners to project various interpretations, and several of these interpretations involved topics that were absolutely taboo for radio in the 1960s. Stations that wanted to avoid controversy simply avoided the song. The ban was never as widespread as some others on this list, but enough stations pulled it that it became notable.
And now Billy Joe McAllister's jumped off the Tallahatchie.
Gentry refused to explain the song's meaning, maintaining that the ambiguity was intentional. This refusal to clarify only made matters worse for nervous program directors. The song became hugely successful, despite the bans, reaching number 1 and winning Grammys. But its success couldn't overcome the fact that some markets refused to play it, worried about community backlash over its dark themes.
He said he saw a girl that looked a lot like you up on Choctaw Ridge.
Number 4. Lola. This song tells the story of a romantic encounter in Soho, where the narrator gradually realizes Lola is not quite what she seems. The song was groundbreaking for its time in addressing transgender identity and gender ambiguity. American radio stations were largely unprepared for such content. Many banned it immediately. Others played it, not realizing what the song was actually about until listeners complained. The lyrics were clever enough that the true subject matter could be missed on casual listening. But once it became clear what the song was depicting, bans followed. The BBC in England also banned it, though for a different reason, over a brand name mention. American stations focused entirely on the gender themes.
Why she walk like a woman but talk like a man, oh my lord.
Some played edited versions, though it was nearly impossible to edit out the core concept without destroying the song entirely. The band demonstrated how far society was from accepting LGBTQ themes in mainstream entertainment. The Kinks faced significant airplay restrictions in the United States throughout their career, and this song's subject matter only made matters worse. Number 3. Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones. This 1966 hit faced bands primarily because of perceived drug references and its dark, depressive themes. The song's narrator wants everything painted black, expressing profound grief and despair. Some program directors interpreted the black imagery as drug-related. Others simply found the song too dark for radio play. The sitar, played by Brian Jones, gave the song an Eastern sound that was associated with drug culture and the counterculture movement. Stations worried about promoting depression or nihilism pulled it from rotation. The song's popularity with teenagers, who embraced its dark mood, actually worked against it with station management, who saw their role as providing wholesome entertainment. Some religious broadcasters saw the black imagery as potentially occult or satanic, though this interpretation was a stretch. The Vietnam War context also played a role. As casualties mounted and the war became more controversial, a song about grief and death resonated powerfully with many listeners, making it even more uncomfortable for stations trying to maintain optimistic programming. Despite these bans, the song became one of the Stones' most enduring hits, another example of censorship failing to stop a song that connected with its audience. Number 2. The Letter by the Box Tops. This 1967 hit seems innocent enough on the surface. A young man wants to get back to his baby, so he needs a ticket for an aeroplane. The song topped charts and became one of the year's biggest hits. But some radio stations, particularly those with conservative religious ownership, banned it. The reason was peculiar, but serious to those who enforced it. The song's narrator talks about not caring how much money he has to spend. This was interpreted as promoting materialism and irresponsible financial behavior. Additionally, the urgency of the narrator's need to return to his baby suggested an improper relationship or situation that required immediate attention. Some stations read between the lines and assumed the worst. The ban was never widespread enough to hurt the song's success, but it demonstrated how far some stations would go in policing content, finding controversy where most listeners heard only a catchy rock and roll song about missing someone. Number 1. Where Did Our Love Go by the Supremes. This number 1 hit from 1964 seems like an unlikely candidate for banning. The Supremes were Motown's most successful group, and this song launched their extraordinary run of hits. But several southern stations refused to play it, and the reason was pure racial prejudice. Despite Motown's crossover success, some stations maintained policies against playing music by black artists. These stations faced pressure from sponsors and community members who objected to black music on their airwaves. The civil rights movement was at its peak in 1964, and racial tensions were high. Some station owners believed playing black artists would alienate their white audience, or position them on the wrong side of the civil rights debate. The Supremes' sophisticated sound and Berry Gordy's careful cultivation of a crossover image couldn't overcome this prejudice in certain markets. The ban wasn't about the song's content, which was completely innocent. It was about who was singing it. This type of censorship was rarely acknowledged publicly. Stations wouldn't admit they banned songs because of race. They would cite format concerns or other excuses. But the pattern was clear. The bans got worse with the civil rights movement's progress, a backlash against social change. Other Supremes hits faced similar restrictions in these markets throughout the decade. The success of Motown and black artists in general during the 1960s happened despite these barriers, making the achievement even more remarkable. The 1960s were a decade of incredible music and incredible controversy. These 15 songs represent just a fraction of the music that faced censorship, but they illustrate the range of concerns that drove banning decisions. Some were banned for sexual content, others for drug references, some for political messages, others for dark themes, and some simply for who was performing them. Looking back, many of these bans seem absurd, but they were very real to the artists whose careers were impacted and to the listeners who were denied access to music they wanted to hear. The power radio stations wielded over popular music in the 1960s is difficult to imagine now. There was no internet, no streaming, no way to access music except through records, radio, or live performance. A radio ban could seriously damage a song's commercial prospects. Yet many of these banned songs became hits anyway, demonstrating the power of word of mouth and the determination of listeners to find the music that spoke to them, regardless of what authority figures thought they should hear. These controversies remind us that music has always been a battleground for larger cultural conflicts. The songs themselves were often just triggers for debates about race, gender, politics, war, drugs, and generational change. The censors weren't really afraid of the songs. They were afraid of what the songs represented, the changes they reflected, the audiences they empowered. If you enjoyed this trip back to a time when music was considered dangerous enough to ban, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more music history content.